Deion Sanders casting off talent with great abandon. The Oklahoma Sooners might be the beneficiary. We'll talk about that and more potential targets for the Oklahoma Sooners on the recruiting trail on today's episode of Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and locked in with Locked On Sooners every single day. My name is John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. My buddy here is Josh Helmer. You can follow him on Twitter at JoshOnRef. The show is at Locked On Sooners. And since Josh wasn't here with us on our previous show, I thought it would be good to just get his thoughts on the whole Jordyn Tyson potential acquisition for the Oklahoma Sooners. If you missed my thoughts on it, you can go back to yesterday's episodes, check that out. A potential primetime option at wide receiver for the Sooners in Jordyn Tyson. Josh?
I like the tape. I like what is out there. And wide receiver for Oklahoma simply at this point in time is it appears a position of need. We thought that might be the case, which, by the way, roll tape. I see where Oklahoma has a need, and I think Jordyn Tyson absolutely, John, can come in and help Oklahoma. 6'2", $180, 22 grabs overall, 470, 4 touchdowns last season for Colorado. You could see, I mean, big frame. He can move. He's a definite athlete. Maybe this is falling in love a little bit with the highlights here, but I'm actually, watching some of this. I'm a little bit surprised he was a 3-star guy and not a 4-star kid, just watching the tape roll here. But I really...
3 versus 4-star thing was one of the things I mentioned on yesterday's show, in that, the dude had 1,500 receiving yards his senior year at Allen. My only guess is that he was just a little bit of a late, riser in the class and didn't kind of get that bump from the recruiting analysts. But you're right, man. The traits are there. The downfield ability is there. The athleticism is there. I loved in that first, play that we saw against Oregon where he goes off for, it was a big, 70-yard touchdown run. After the play, he starts jawing at the Oregon, player a little bit. You don't mind that. I think that shows that competitiveness, that even though they're down big, that he's just not giving up. He's not quitting. He's just going to continue to show the fight. And you just look at the stat sheet, the game logs from last year, just got better. The more playing time he got, the better he got. I talked with our guy at Locked On, Buffaloes, Kevin Borba, and he said that this is one of the players that are like a lot of, Colorado Buffaloes. So, it's interesting to see that Oklahoma's in on this, but a lot of other schools are going to be in on it as well. I don't think we're going to be anywhere close to a decision unless Jeff Lebby, Emmett Jones, Brent Venables, that they just blow him away during his visit, spent time on OU's campus the past couple of days. So a great opportunity for them to add a dynamic playmaker, another dynamic playmaker, as they try to solve their wide receiver problem outside of Jalil Farouk, Drake Stoops.
You just watch this tape and there's a little bit of everything. Go high point the football. Just a moment ago, you saw the catch, if you're watching along with us on YouTube and not just listening on the podcast side, that diving grab in the end zone. Here he's blanketed and he goes up and makes a catch in traffic over the middle, slant route. I'm going to go get it. Go route. I'm going to go get it. So I just feel like, man, there's a lot to like on this tape here from Jordyn Tyson. And I would think the opportunity to come to Oklahoma, where you've got all of your, eligibility minus 1 year left, and you get the chance to play with Dillon Gabriel, an experienced quarterback for one. And oh, by the way, John, there's a big time need at Oklahoma. They need help at wide receiver. There's Jalil Farouk and there's Drake Stoops, and then there's a lot of unknown after that. So it makes sense for both sides for Jordyn Tyson to come in and be, again, a difference maker for Oklahoma and to play at OU. I know it's off a 6-7 season, but there's always going to be the draw, John, to be an Oklahoma Sooner, to play here with somebody, again, like Dillon Gabriel, under an offensive coordinator in Jeff Lebby that has the type of track record and pedigree that Jeff Lebby has. And then projecting down the line, okay, there's a 5-star quarterback that has signed and is in Norman, Oklahoma, in Jackson Arnold. So I think there's a lot of reasons where you could connect the dots and say, okay, this makes sense for both, and it would be very, very attractive.
Yeah, you can look at Oklahoma's situation and how often over the last 23 years has the offense not been great. You probably can't even count on a handful of times in which the offense hasn't been great at Oklahoma in the past 23 years since 2000. So it's a great situation, regardless of what the record was last year, regardless of some of the inefficiencies on offense. It's a great situation to go to the University of Oklahoma, have a chance to play wide receiver and play with the quarterbacks that they have coming in. Very familiar with Oklahoma's 2024 4-star quarterback commit, Michael Hawkins. They played together in 2021 at Allen High School before Tyson went off to Colorado in 2022. So there are a lot of really strong reasons, to be interested in the Oklahoma Sooners. That said, he'd have to come in and compete for an opportunity and compete for a job. There's no, easy path necessarily, unless he just comes in and proves he's the best man for the job. But he fits what they want as one of their outside wide receivers. They need a guy that can win down the field. And he's proven in just the 1 year that he can win down the field. He's got more, production to his name than an Andrell Anthony, than a Brennan Thompson. I mean, still, it's just 1 year, but you've got a little bit more proven production. So that's not to discount what Brennan Thompson and Andrell Anthony can bring to the table, but you're getting a little bit more of a known quantity out of a Jordyn Tyson. So very intriguing prospect. We'll see where the recruitment goes. We'll see how this all ends up. But I think both of us and most everybody that kind of looks at him thinks he'd be a great fit for Oklahoma and a great get for the Oklahoma Sooners. Speaking of players that might be great gets, Josh, any final thoughts here on Jordyn Tyson before we turn the corner here and talk about some other guys?
Sure. And I would imagine you delved into some of this last night, but does this tell us that the coaching staff isn't particularly comfortable with where they're at today at wide receiver? I could certainly see the argument for it, and I think it's easy to make that connection probably for a lot of Oklahoma fans. You're coming off a spring game, and it's a spring game, so take it with a grain of salt, but Jaden Gibson is someone we're counting upon at OU to be this guy that is going to take this big leap forward. And he had some, again, badly timed, poorly timed drops in that game. So I don't know if this is evaluating that, if it's just the overall complexion of the situation that Oklahoma's in right now at wide receiver. If it's just, hey, it does feel like you've gone out and you've added Brennan Thompson now as the spring concludes, right? And you're trying to go get another wide receiver right here. So it does sort of feel like this coaching staff has surveyed the situation at Oklahoma throughout the spring and said, you know what, whether it's not even just overreacting to Jaden Gibson and it hasn't totally clicked yet, and he had a couple of drops in the spring game, or Nick Anderson, is he totally ready to just everything that's on campus in Norman, Oklahoma. And I think of those two guys, I guess, front of the mind, John, just because they're the two highly touted signees in the most recent class that isn't the 2023 signing class, right? So it's easy for me to say, okay, Jaden Gibson, Nick Anderson, are they ready to take that next step? And does the coaching staff basically not feel that that's the case right now? But it's just could be overall the situation wide receiver in general. I think it's easy to make that conclusion that the coaching staff, John, feels like, yeah, we got to go get help.
I think it could mean that. I also think it could just strictly mean Oklahoma's going to add talent as often as an opportunity presents itself to add talent, with no feelings attached, with, evaluations considered as well. But if they think there's a guy out there that's going to help them be better, they're just going to add him, and then they'll let the chips fall where they may. And if a guy like Brennan Thompson comes in and wins a job, he comes in and wins a job. I'm sorry, like, that's just the business of college football. If a guy like Jordyn Tyson comes in and earns a role, that's just the way it goes. And I think this is just Brent Venables, somebody asked like, how's this going to, or on Twitter, they asked, how's this going to play? Are there going to be hurt feelings? And I mean, to be fair, Brent Venables isn't in the feelings business. He's in the wins business. And I mean, they're going to take all that into account. But at the end of the day, they need guys that they can put on the field that are going to produce. And if they think that Jordyn Tyson is a guy that can help them, they're going to add him. Now, does it add just another name to the wide receiver competition that, can get a little bit murky? Sure. But you add talent, you trust that talent to come in and work hard and do their part and develop. And whoever rises to the top and gets the playing time. So I think it could say a lot of different things. I think it's definitely possible. They don't necessarily feel great about their wide receiver position, but I also think that it could just mean like, hey, this is a talented kid. We like the kid. We're going to add the kid. So I think it could also mean that. Speaking of kids that they seem to like, we're going to talk about Konner Neal, a D2 linebacker that Ted Roof is pursuing on the recruiting trail. We'll talk to you about that after the break. First, let me talk to you about Built Bar. It's the best tasting protein bar on the market. 100% covered in chocolate, tastes great, and it's great for you. 4 or 5 grams of sugar, 4 or 5 carbohydrates, 130 to 170 calories, 17, 18 grams of protein, great flavors. My favorite, the peanut butter brownie. It always hits the spot. It's fantastic as a pre-workout, a meal supplement. If you need a snack, in the middle of the day, it's too long till dinner, too far away from lunch, and you just want to get something in your system that's going to give you the protein you need, have that long-lasting energy, go to Built.com, use that promo code LOCKED15, get 15% off your next order over at Built.com. You can also check it out at Sam's or at Walmart. Again, Built.com, promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your next order. All right, Josh, Konner Neal, a D2 linebacker out of the state of Michigan, played at Ferris State up there in Michigan the last few years, but is a potential option for the Oklahoma Sooners at linebacker as Ted Roof extended an offer to the very productive, very talented Konner with a K, Neal.
There you go. A GLIAC standout. I forget what the GLIAC conference is. I looked it up earlier and I could not tell you. But I really like what you see here. I mean, look, physical, get off a block, boom, get downhill. And I understand the level of play is not going to be group of 5 football. I understand it's not power 5 football. But am I crazy to say that I see somebody on this tape that could help Oklahoma potentially?
No, you're not crazy at all. You mentioned it. He's a physical player. He gets downhill. You see him at the middle linebacker position. If you're here with us on YouTube, making the calls, being the leader out on the field, directing traffic, and, showing good coverage skills, showing good ability to, flow with the football, maintain good leverage, get into his gap, get into his space, and make a tackle. When he hits a guy, you don't see a lot of yards after contact. These guys aren't falling forward with Konner Neal. They're getting hit, and there's a play where they just fell forward, but not very far. But you're seeing running backs get hit and then either stay where they're at or go backwards. So that shows you just the ability. I mean, he's a consistently wrapping up tackler, which I think is huge. It's an underrated trait, I think, in current football, whether it's NFL, college, high school, whatever. It's always one of those things that stands out to me when I'm watching guys is, okay, how often are they wrapping up to tackle? Are they just trying to throw shoulders or are they just, going at players' legs? This is a guy that looks like a really good form tackler. I mean, he helped Ferris State win back-to-back national titles. So that shows you the level of ability that he's got, that he can bring to the table. Plays fast, gets downhill. Things that Brent Venables wants in his defense are, again, fast decision makers, guys that play fast.
Well, that right there, a 2-time national champion, to add that to the locker room is no small thing. Somebody that knows what it takes. And I get it. A lot of these guys arrive at the University of Oklahoma with that from high school, but to take that to the collegiate level and continue it and then to bring it to Norman, Oklahoma, I think would be something that you welcome. He actually, he moves pretty well, I feel like, in coverage too. on this day. But then this one right here, boom, fly downhill, come hit a quarterback that decides to run. So I kind of dig it. It's a little bit off the beaten path, I think, for most out there. Fans would maybe look at this offer and say, Ferris State, yeah, I don't know about that. And yet you kind of flip on the tape and you watch it, and I see traits of somebody that, yeah, could be a linebacker, at least from even just a practice squad perspective, John. You get somebody in that has been around winning at the collegiate level, that clearly is a physical, punishing, bruising linebacker that flies around to the football well. I'm all about it.
And I think, yeah, you can look at the D2 thing and the Ferris State, but you're starting to see more and more guys kind of get unearthed, so to speak, out of the Division II ranks and make their way to Power 5 football or to the NFL. It's becoming, less of a hindrance. I mean, it's going to be harder to kind of establish yourself as a, top talent, but I mean, you're starting to see it. You're starting to see guys make that, break that glass ceiling, so to speak. And I mean, he looks like he's got the traits. Now, what he looks like against Power 5 competition in an Oklahoma football program, that remains to be seen, or in a Michigan State program, which is also a big time player in his recruitment. It remains to be seen. But as a guy that you could bring in and add to your middle linebacker depth, I think that's a really good, really promising player. He'd have to come in and compete for snaps at middle linebacker. But even if he's just a special teams guy, that gives you a guy that's physical, fast, gets downhill, and can do the dirty work. You got to have guys on your team that do that. And so I think it's an intriguing option, for the Sooners to add linebacker depth. Will he come in and be a starter? Probably not. But again, that doesn't mean that he can't have a significant role for a team whose linebacker core played way too much last year. This is a guy that gives you a little bit of experience, even though it's not, FBS, Power 5, Group of 5 experience. It's a guy that's played a lot. He's played a lot of snaps, and you see things when you played a lot of snaps, and that stuff kind of helps inform what you're going to do on the football field. So an intriguing prospect for sure that, if Ted Roof and Brent Venables are interested in him, then there's got to be something to it, right?
Well, that's it right there, isn't it? I mean, the tape and what you and I see and his ability to fly to the football and be physical and get off blockers, and coverage skills look pretty good. There's one piece of the tape where he's split out wide in coverage and sticks right with a wide receiver. So that part, all of that looks good on the tape. And I understand the Ferris State component to it is going to turn away some Oklahoma fans, but I guess the charge would be just what you said right there to close it, John. It would be, if it's good enough for Brent Venables and for Ted Roof, probably especially if there's one position, okay? If there's one position we trust Brent Venables' evaluation on, and it should be many defensively, but if there's one, I bet you he can find a diamond in the rough linebacker.
Well, and let's remember, a guy like Teddy Lehman had to earn his, scholarship offer at a OU football camp. This was a guy that was kind of flying under the radar. At least, hadn't really done enough to earn that, and then goes out and runs this blistering 40 time at an OU football camp, and Brent Venables is sold on him. So it's not to say just because, he had to go this roundabout way to get there that there's not something there. So it's an intriguing option for sure. Speaking of some intriguing options, Josh, Jaden Jackson, a 3-star defensive tackle prospect out of IMG Academy, teammate of 1 5-star defensive tackle prospect David Stone, dropped his top 5 today, including the Oklahoma Sooners, the Miami Hurricanes, Florida Gators, Ohio State Buckeyes, and the Texas Longhorns. This dude is a legit interior defensive line player, already up over 300 pounds. He gets off the ball really quickly. He moves really, really well for a guy his size. He's a physical player. You see him right there just bull rushing his opponent, getting into the backfield, making the tackle for loss. That dude's going to be a really, really good player, especially a guy that can line up over the center as a one technique nose tackle and be a physical force at the college football level.
Again, I mean, really, really talented defensive linemen in what could wind up being, if you if you mix a Jaden Jackson in, and oh, by the way, David Stone comes too, and then we're talking about Williams Winery and Nigel Smith. I mean, you're talking about all of a sudden this could be an all-timer defensive line class, and I wouldn't be sleeping on Jaden Jackson's tape. This is somebody that Oklahoma fans should want, John.
You need guys like this. I mean, he may not have, the numbers, the production that some of his contemporaries have, but he's doing a lot of the dirty work, taking on double teams, lining up over the center, playing, deep in the interior. That stuff matters, and that stuff helps you win football games. But you see the get off is there. Like he's really good at getting into the backfield. I mean, he can stack his blocker up. He can hold him up at the point of attack. There he is, just beating a double team, getting the sack. He's part of a rotation at IMG, and so that might fly under the radar a little bit. David Stone getting a lot of the pub might have Jaden Jackson flying under the radar a little bit, but he's a really good player. And one of those players that you could see rise to 4-star status by the time this is all said and done, because I mean, he's got so many of the traits that you're looking for, and he's already 300 pounds. Like he's already got a college football frame for an interior defense player, a guy that can play nose tackle, or even he can line up at the 3 tech. I see enough quickness in him that he can line up at 3 tech as well. So this is a very, very intriguing player. And everybody that I seem to talk to, whether it's Brandon Drum, other people on the recruiting side of things, thinks Oklahoma could take as many as 6 defensive linemen in this class, which if that's the case, that holds, what Josh is saying to be true, that this could be an all-time defensive line class. And this is one of those guys that is a definitive interior defensive line player, not a tweener, not a guy that is going to, flex outside and play, defensive end and 3-man fronts. I mean, he could play some of that. He's got the quickness and ability to do that, but he's definitely a legit interior player. Unlike, a Williams Nwaneri, who's a bit of a tweener, or a Nigel Smith, who's a bit of a tweener. David Stone is an interior defensive line player, but you got to add more bulk. That was what Brent Venables was so successful with at Oklahoma in his first stop, with guys like Gerald McCoy and Gerald McCoy and Tommy Harris, and then going to Clemson with a guy like Dexter Lawrence and Calvin Watkins, like these dudes that go to the NFL and have long, successful careers because they are really good at interior defensive line and they make things happen. So this Jaden Jackson, man, that's a name to watch. Not sure when his commitment date is set for, but the fact that Oklahoma is in the top 5 just goes to show what Todd Bates is doing right now on the recruiting trail, which, I mean, great work that he's doing, because he's got Oklahoma in position for Jaden Jackson, Williams Nwaneri, David Stone, Joseph Jonah Ajonye, and Miguel Chavis and Bates are working on Williams Nwaneri and Nigel Smith. Zadavian Sims is another name that's starting to kind of creep back into the conversation as well. So I mean, this class, dude, it's gonna be nuts.
Our man here, Jaden Jackson, by the way, going to be a part of the Polynesian Bowl roster. You start thinking about his ability to translate to the next level, and he's listed, and take this with caution, folks, because recruiting sites not always totally accurate with the heights and weights here, but he's listed 6'2", 300. And, I just take from that, John, the way that he moves when we watch him, again, like you said, could be a 3 tech player, the way he fights and works in and out of double teams. I mean, this is somebody that, to me, moves really, really well for his size, could serve to add 20 pounds and probably still move pretty similarly to what you're watching right now on the YouTube side, the way he gets off blockers and flies into the backfield. So this is somebody, to me, that, he's listed by 24/7 Sports as a 3-star kid. This is development city for Brent Venables, for Todd Bates. And this is somebody that, again, you want to get as part of this class, because he's got those traits. He's got those traits to be explosive on the interior of the defensive line. Then you just add a little bit of weight and just keep getting better and better. And this is somebody that down the road could really be a difference maker up front for Oklahoma.
Absolutely. And Josh, as we're recording, we just got a crystal ball from Collin Kennedy of Sooners Illustrated projecting one Jordyn Tyson to the Oklahoma Sooners. So gotta jump on that. Gotta talk about that. I know Jaden Jackson is the subject of conversation. We're going to talk about Sammy Brown here in a second, but the crystal ball, basically, I mean, in a transfer recruitment, that's pretty huge at this point. It might still be early, and this is Collin Kennedy kind of just getting back on the scene in the Oklahoma sphere, but he's very well traveled. He's a very well respected name in the recruiting industry. So what does it mean, crystal ball, after visiting Oklahoma?
Well, let's just book in the show here, right? And for the everydayers, we love you. Sammy Brown will discuss. He set up his official visits dates for the spring and summer ahead, late spring into the summer. And Oklahoma's obviously in that mix. We'll tell you where on our next edition of Locked On Sooners. But we end where we began, which is Jordyn Tyson is somebody that absolutely can help Oklahoma. And it sounds like if Collin Kennedy of Sooners Illustrated is going to toss that crystal ball out there, that there's a very good chance that he going to be coming on down to Norman, Oklahoma. And it just goes back to what we said off the top, John, which is it's easy to see for Tyson why Oklahoma would be attractive. You've got Jalil Farouk, you've got Drake Stoops, and then you've got unknown. You got potential, but so much unknown there. And the coaching staff clearly likes what he can bring to the table. And again, I just think it's a good situation in terms of his ability to step in and legitimately, like you said, John, somebody that for all of these different, wide receivers that aren't named Jalil Farouk and Drake Stoops, he's got the most proven production out of anybody not named those two guys. So he would have the opportunity to step in and be a big-time contributor from day one. That's right here, right now in 2023 for Oklahoma. And then as they jump into the SEC where, look, that's the stage that you're going to get paid. You go produce this season and then beyond into next season when Oklahoma's in the SEC with one Mr. Jackson Arnold, and you're going to get yourself a nice little bag of cash.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for him. Just the quarterback play that alone that he's going to play with over the next couple of years, at least, is very, very strong. A great opportunity for Oklahoma to improve their wide receiver core before they even hit the summertime. So Collin Kennedy issuing that crystal ball from 247 Sports and Sooners Illustrated puts Oklahoma kind of in the driver's seat on that. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. We'll continue to follow the Jordyn Tyson. We're going to call him Jordan Mike Tyson because all he does is land knockout blows on opponents with that 26.5 yards per catch over the last 3 games of the 2022 season. So huge production, huge ability, guy that fits that potential Marvin Mims role. But we'll talk Sammy Brown on tomorrow's show. We'll continue to follow recruiting. We're going to break it all down, get you into the weekend with more recruiting talk. I'm sure Oklahoma will bless us at some point over the next few days before we get to next week with another commitment. That just seems to be the way things are going right now on the recruiting trail for the Sooners. But until next time, follow Josh on Twitter at JoshOnRef. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Sooners. We'll be there. You'll be here because you're part of that everyday club, one of the everydayers. We'll catch you then. Boomer Sooner.